Hi, guys. Thanks for joining us on the Activate and Illuminate podcast with Mel. I'm your host, Mel. Together, we're going to be diving into some stories of ordinary people doing a little bit of extraordinary things. People who've maybe pushed their bodies, their mindsets, or maybe society's paradigms. So you're going to find yourself maybe wanting to laugh, cry, or even be inspired. We would invite you to share, like, and subscribe, to sign up for our newsletter as well on activateandilluminate.com. Now, just keep in mind that this information that you are going to hear is informational and educational for entertainment purposes only. This does not constitute professional advice of any kind. The views expressed are those of myself and guests only. Listeners are encouraged to seek professional and legal advice regarding their own situations. So, thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time, and thanks again for being here. Well, thank you so much for being here today. So today I am joined by Mr. Harvey Conner. Now, Harvey is an author. He's an entrepreneur. He's written a few different books that we're going to get into talking about. I greatly respect everything he does. He's an avid professional, and he's been a professional in his field for over 50 years. So he's got a lot of wisdom for us. And welcome, Harvey. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me, Melanie. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the truth about you and the spirit of Harvey. Who are you? Where did you come from? And then we'll go from there.
Okay. Well, I guess we all got our stories, right? So mine's probably not, well, maybe it's a little unusual, but I'm speaking to you from Vancouver, and I grew up outside of Vancouver on a mixed farm, like dairy, cattle, and crops. And my parents had bought that farm when I was about 5 years old. So I grew up on that farm until last year of high school. My parents' dream was to have my older brother and I take over that farm. And living on the farm and getting the firsthand experience of the level of work, the commitment, no holidays. Cows don't have holidays. Sometimes we'd have to work into the wee hours of the morning just to get the crops in before maybe a rainstorm the next day. And you just had to do what had to be done before you go to bed. So it taught me a lot. My work ethic was through the roof. I mean, you just need to get it done. But when it came down to taking over the farm, my parents were you might say, somewhat heartbroken after putting so many years in the farm where I didn't want to take it over. My brother didn't want to take it over. They said, okay, we'll sell the farm. We'll send you to the university or college. And then I disappointed them on that too, because I didn't want to go to university or college. I learned something during the time that I was on the farm, that it was much better to work for profits than it is to work for slave wages. And what I mean by that is that I'd had numerous blue collar jobs supporting, working on the farm. I was a forklift operator, Pepsi Cola. I pumped gas at a corner gas station, and it ate up all my time. And I was never much further ahead. And the things that I wanted, I couldn't afford. And my parents barely got by. So work didn't equate to success and prosperity. I fell in love with cars, and I started buying and selling old cars. And I bought and sold enough old cars, making a little profit on each one. By the time I was graduating my last year of school that summer, I bought a brand new Corvette Stingray for cash. And talk about poetic justice, because I was a little introverted twerp, you might say, shy, and I was always sick. Every Christmas, I got every kind of bug you got. So I never got invited on sports teams or anything. So I was just, kids are cruel, they pick on the weakest person, right? But my mother was the driving force, she was like 100 pounds wet and 5 foot tall. She had a handshake. It could lift me off the ground. She was just a dynamo. She said, Harvey, anytime I said I couldn't do something, she said, you can't say can't, because can'ts are cowards too lazy to try. And you're just as good as all those other kids too. So you can't be a basketball player because you're too short. You can't, you got 2 left hands. You can't hit the ball out of the park. So why don't you find something you love to do and get good at it? And those were the wisest words. And so I fell in love with model cars, turned into buying and selling real cars. But here's the real kicker. During my time in school, I avoided all the like algebra and French and all those languages, and because they didn't appeal to me. But I had woodwork and metalwork where I could learn how to build parts for my cars. But the only thing that I learned in school that really paid off in dividends to this day is that you'll never guess it. I joined what was called a home economics, and it was a typing class with those keyboard, the old punch and click
Yeah.
typewriters. And the only reason why I took that, I was so shy. I wanted to meet this beautiful blonde that was, and everybody was chasing her, and she went and took typing. So none of the jocks, the basketball team players, would go to e-commerce. I did, sat next to her, and I learned to type without looking at my fingers, looking at her, and I got up to 60 words a minute. And to this day, being able to type on all the different platforms at the speed that I type was the most empowering lesson I learned in school. But here's the other thing too. Time I got my Corvette, it was poetic because all the girls, they started lining up to go for a ride with my Corvette, and the jocks lost out.
So you put yourself into a target-rich environment right from the get-go.
That was a bit of a ramble about my background, but you know what? It set the stage. It sets the stage because I just knew I did not want to work for anybody, and and I knew I could get good at one thing, and I did. So that's how my upbringing, where I came from, and also tied with some deep Christian values, ethics, integrity, commitments, faith. They were the underlying principles that kept me strong as I pursued my goals and dreams over the next 5 decades.
Important do you think those values that you just talked about are for business success?
Well, definitely. My mother used to say, son, if you don't believe in something, you'll fall for anything. I seen it through my career that the lure of easy money clouds good judgment. And
Mhm.
a lot of people chase off get rich quick schemes, easy money, and they do damage not only to themselves, but if they're passionate about it, they probably got other people involved, and it all comes crumbling down because if it's not right, it's not right. There has to be integrity. You have to be bringing real value to people for whatever they're believing in or investing in. And yeah, I stay away from anything that looks, questionable.
Yeah.
And that's important in any kind of enterprise because the whole idea of entrepreneurship, everybody wants to get rich, and some do, some don't. But they're so quick to jump at anything that looks like easy money.
What do you think the secrets of success, or like you say, if it were just tie it to monetary, what do you think the secrets of accomplishing that level of success are?
Well, first of all, that's a two-pronged question or an answer, I should say. First of all, you got to define why you are chasing what you're chasing. What are the dreams that you're pursuing? How important is that to you? You gotta find purpose in your life. And without purpose, you're gonna be shifting all the time, going down different roads and starting over all the time. I mean, I always found it very troublesome to my good friends growing up, out of this teenage years who were so adamant that they were going to, go to university and become successful with a great education. I admired that. It's not my path, but go for it. I'd run into them, you lose touch and you'd run into them in a few years and they'd change classes and they'd change direction of their life 4 or 5 times. So if they had just figured it out earlier on, wouldn't have wasted all that time. They would have got their degree earlier and they would have become better in the long term because they had more time to actually put into practice what they've learned. So the sooner one can anchor your purpose in any area of your life and why you're doing what you're doing, that's the sure road to success. Purposes. You got to have a purpose. When you know where you're going, the winds of adversity stop blowing. The universe wants for you what you want more than what even you wanted because you've aligned yourself with something meaningful.
Yeah, that hits home. Tell us what do you think your purpose is?
Oh, well, first of all, to give more back to others than I expect them to give of me. In other words, one of my earliest mottos or motos, got that right, one of my earliest metaphors
Yeah.
was, may you be better for knowing me, not less because of it. In other words, I want to be able to contribute some value to why we're associated with each other. If you have some way that you can pay back to me, that's great, but that's not what I'm doing for you or why I'm helping you. Because I learned some very positive principles from some of the earlier books that I read, that the surest path to prosperity and abundance and freedom in life comes from the number of people you can help to achieve those dreams and goals themselves. Because anybody contributes to prosperity, it's the law of the universe, you prosper in return. But I wasn't, selfishly helping others, so I thought that I would have a big payday. I just knew that I believed in that principle, and it paid off dramatically over the years, especially in my chosen profession.
Tell us about your chosen profession.
Well, I'll roll you back to the time that I got out of school. I've been fulfilling all my objectives with these nice cars and all that. And, but I never had working capital. I always had to sell one car to have the money to buy the next car.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking back, if I had some capital, I could have saved and put those cars in warehouses, and I'd have about $2 or $3 million worth of cars sitting in my collector's item, right? But I couldn't do that. So I wanted a business where I didn't have to trade hours for dollars, because in those days, minimum wage was like less than a cup of coffee today at Starbucks. So, and there was not enough hours, and you couldn't get paid enough with my limited blue collar background. So I needed to find a business, and I didn't have any money to find a business. That's the other thing, and I didn't have any business skills. So, but I had a dream. I knew what I wanted. I wanted the fastest race car money could buy and win championships. So I knew what I wanted. I just had to figure out how to do that. And when you know where you're going, the how appears. So whether it be by divine guidance or whatever, that's when the direct selling industry showed up in my life. And what happened was, I had a friend's older brother who was a professional insurance broker call me one day and just ask, Harvey, good to talk to you. We did some chit chat, and he said, let me ask you a question. If you had all the money in the world right now and the time to enjoy it, what would you be doing differently than what you're doing right now? And I said, well, first of all, I wouldn't be loading trucks at Pepsi Cola, number one. And I would have, I would have my dream car. And he said, well, what if I could shorten the time that it would take you to earn enough money to have that dream car? Would you be open to listening to a presentation, an opportunity? But one request, you got to come with an open mind. He said, it may not be for you whatsoever, but you have the interest, you have the goals. Let me show you how to get them. So I ended up driving all the way into Vancouver from the country. I had no dress clothes. I mean, I had a raggedy old white shirt and holes in my jeans, and they weren't Armani's. And I arrived at this place, an office building, and I went upstairs. They signed in as a guest, but there's about 30 people there. At the front of the room, there's this table with a white drapery cloth over top of what appeared to be products or whatever. And I thought that was strange. And a young guy got up in the front, introduced himself. To this day, he's one of my oldest friends, like 60 years later. He was a football star from Southern California, had come back to live in Vancouver and brought this business with him. And he was the guest speaker. So he unloaded the drapery off the products, and to my, yeah. And I'm thinking, like, okay, listen, tell me what you've got going on. So they showed a 16 millimeter film. They wrote on a chalkboard, and they showed I didn't have to sell cosmetics. I had to build a marketing organization of ladies who they would train to sell. I just had to be a leader, inspire them, and recruit a team. And I said, I can do that. Big last part of the story. You can get started tonight. It was $5,000 and a distributor kit of $170. I had $50.
Yeah.
I left the meeting really quickly. They thought they'd said something that turned me off. I couldn't get home fast enough to figure out how I could borrow. And that's the start of my direct selling career. And I learned how to develop my mind first with Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, all the great, self-development gurus.
Wow.
This episode brought to you by protandemcanada.lifevantage.com. What if you could turn on your body to work like it was supposed to? What if you could have it remember how to handle toxins, stress, and the environment like it used to when you were young? What if it worked for your pets too? What if this is not about supplementing something that is missing, but activating something that has gone dormant? About actually turning on your body to make these things again. Learn how to activate your body now. Check us out, protandemcanada.lifevantage.com.
Did any of your friends come on board?
That's really a good question. No. I may have had one or two that would even take the time to listen to what I was doing, wouldn't come to a meeting. But we used to hang out at this drive-in restaurant where all the fast cars would line up. And I remember I got rid of my dirty fingernails. I bought a suit and I ended up making enough money. I bought a brand new Oldsmobile Tornado. So I looked like the executive type, made the role, lived the part, lived the dream. And I remember coming into that white spot when I parked my car. And some of the old buddies are still sitting around and they're saying, "Oh, here's Harvey, the perfume peddler." And all they did was ridicule me,
Yeah.
Oh, those things never last. Why don't you get a real job? All those things. So I read a principle somewhere in one of the books, one of life's lessons is that it's easier, people will pull you down faster than you can ever lift them up. And so one of the Jim Rohn, who I learned later, one of my mentors, he said, you are always the average of your 5 people you hang around with. So if you got 5 broke friends, you're going to be number 6. If you want to be successful, you better hang around with successful people. They will inspire you to be greater than who you are. So I made a choice that night. I would love my friends, but I would create new friends. And I'm glad that I did because I went to a grad reunion about 35 years later, and all of my first friends were all doing the same old, and all broke.
That leads me to a question as you were talking, thinking, do you think that the unmotivated can become motivated?
Yes, because the big statement I've always used is that who motivates the motivator?
Yeah.
You have to motivate yourself. Now, what is motivation? A lot of people don't understand it. If motivation can be equivalent of a hot shower, it feels great when you've got it, you're clean. But if you don't have a shower every day, like where's the motivation, right? So it has to be internalized. And what drives motivation? There's only really 2 sources of motivation. One is inspiration, like what drove me, because it was a combination of both, but what inspired me was cars and fast cars. And, it was just something I loved to this
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
I love getting behind the wheels of something that takes off, right?
Yeah.
So, however, and inspiration is for a lot of people, but the problem is it doesn't really last because after a while, success in life is never a straight road. It's not a straight path. And if you dream too big and something happens that derails you, you may never get remotivated because it knocked the wind out of your sails. It said, "Oh, well, I guess I'm not cut out for this." And they start rationalizing why it didn't work. So the other type of motivation, which is by far the strongest, is desperation. When you look at Gina Rowlands, R.K. Rowlands, I think that's her name, right? Rowlands from Harry Potter. She was on I'm basically one step from welfare, homeless, trying to sell, get her stories published, went to 12 authors, all turned down, trying to take care of a kid as a single mother. And she wouldn't quit because she saw herself as this epic author of this series of books. And you know what? Thank God she didn't quit because Harry Potter series, she's the world's richest female author, over $1 billion in assets owns, I mean, she's richer than what the Queen of England was with properties and assets and films. It's all the different assets she built through that story, but she never gave up. But her desperation was she had to get published or she was going to be homeless and how was going to take care of her kid. When you see people that I just watched a video of a young man who lost his legs, and he had been in sports, and he used to do a lot of different things. And one of his goals was to climb Mount Everest, and he did it without legs because he was determined. That's what he was going to achieve. When desperation drives you, it allows you to get out of your comfort zone, because there is no comfort zone. The only comfort zone, tomorrow is going to be as bad a day as it was today and yesterday. What's going to happen to change it? You got to make it happen. So, desperation is negative, but it can turn into a positive because it creates the results necessary that you are seeking, that you want. And then you realize that, hey, I can do it. I can do this. Look what I did. And then you start going on a more path of a dreamer, of an inspired person, that anything's possible. And more important, when you come out of desperation, you become a really perfect example to others, to inspire others what is actually possible when the human mind sets itself on a goal and a vision and a purpose.
Yeah. What are you most proud of?
The people whose lives that I've impacted. I can't look at it right now because I've got my iPhone on, but I just got a message this morning, a return to a Happy New Year I sent out to a dear friend of mine. He was one of the earliest people in my career that just ate up every single thing that I ever said. He was first in the class. He was in the front row. He memorized my quotes. He put them into practice. He became one of the top money earners in 2-3 different companies. We did videos together. Matt found a different calling recently because he's basically retired. And he started building he was interested in poker. So he started a YouTube channel where he would play the slot machines and poker and all that. And he's a character. I mean, he's just a compelling individual. He teaches people how to do this, and he's built a following of millions of people worldwide on his channel, millions. And he's monetized that from, swag and everything else. And he's got his own moniker, his own name. He goes on cruises. He's played poker with Sir Richard Branson. And he's crushing it. He showed me where he picked up over $400,000 in winnings playing poker. And I sent him one of my inspirational messages, and I said to him, Matt, you're rocking, buddy. You're crushing your niche. Keep going. Love you. Happy New Year. A day later, he got back to me today, and he said, Harvey, he said, oh my goodness, he said, you taught me everything I know about business when we first got connected. And you look younger than ever, forever young, and keep on going as well. There's something to that effect. But, when you have somebody that is iconic, that you play just a little part in the seeds that you planted in those early years, because we were only in our late 20s, early 30s, right?
Yeah.
And he's changed so many lives himself. He's one of the best trainers I know. I used to have a seminar, and we had 12 certified trainers, and he was rated number one all the time, just by proper mentoring, proper coaching, and following the basic principles and living them. Because when you live what you teach, that's when they become real.
Well, I recently had the pleasure of reading one of your books. I have both of them, and let's talk about both of them, but which one do you want to talk about first?
Well, just to finish up on my beginnings,
Yeah.
how I got started, we could talk about my first book, which was my first 50 years in network marketing.
Okay.
And the subtitle was From Survival to Significance. And that book, I wrote that book not to be a best-selling author, because wasn't the motivation. I just like you heard some of the, things we've discussed already on this podcast, I just had a lot of things to share about what it takes not only to succeed in network marketing, but the principles that determine success or failure in life. I had to leave that for future generations. And so this is a legacy publication for me. And I spent way too much money on it. It weighs 2.5 pounds. It's like a coffee table book, right?
It's beautiful.
I put all the color photography in it, and the design and the layout, and 87,000 words. But the most significant chapters in the book I only have one chapter on network marketing and another chapter on skills and one chapter on the people business, which is what you need to know is how to work with people and how to develop your leadership, right? And there's one on leadership, but the core of the book is called The Inner Game. And a little bit we've already discussed, and that is about the fact that success is an inside job. It's not something you chase, it's who you become. And, we're at one of the most fantastic days of the year, January 1st, 2nd. I love it because, to many people, it gets them to, you know, clear the slate and start over again. That's great. A reset's good. But what people don't understand is that when you go into a new year, it's not about setting goals. When you go into a new year, you're bringing into a clean slate, into a new year, all of the habits, the mental attitude, everything that you were doing in 2025 is being carried forward. So do an audit and see how did that turn out for you. And if you need a shift, you want to have more than what you had and got a bigger success than you enjoyed last year or even success, then you got to become more than who you are or you'll keep getting what you've had. So it's an inside job. It'll just be history repeating itself over and over and over again. So you got to become the new you. You got to reinvent yourself. And what this book does, it gets to the core for network marketers, why they're stuck at any rank level or why they aren't, the $1 million earners that they thought they were going to be when they started out. It's nothing to do with the products. It has nothing to do with the company they join in most cases, although there's some faulty companies out there, unfortunately. But if they've got the right company and the right products, then they got to look at the mirror and say, that's the person that's keeping me back from fulfilling my dreams, not what I'm doing. It is who I am. So that's hard to cover in a seminar or unless it's a long one. But in print, I just thought that this is something that people could go back to and revisit over and over and over again. And not only that, pay it forward and give it to their team. I have several leaders, a former trainer for Tony Robbins and a former coach of Pepperdine for sport. He just got into network marketing. This is what I first brought out the book. He read it and he said, now I understand why I'm doing network marketing. It's about building others. And when you build others, you build a business. And he bought over $2,000 worth of books to give them out as incentives and or gifts for achievement. Because he recognized, based upon his understanding about growing people, that this was the way to do it. And network marketing was the perfect on-ramp to entrepreneurship to lead people on that path.
Yeah. Well, it certainly is a industry that I have grown to love. So
Yeah. There's nothing like it.
no, and honestly, it has given more than I ever thought it possibly could. But that being said, on-ramp to entrepreneurship, tell us about your next book.
Right. My next book is called Entrepreneurs Don't Fail, They Quit. And the subtitle is How Entrepreneurs Win or Lose the Battle Within. And because ultimately, there are no failures, only quitters.
Yeah.
And an entrepreneur has to have a different mindset. If something you attempt and fail, you didn't really fail unless you gave up on your purpose or your dream. If something didn't work out, you don't fail, you've learned. So you don't repeat it in the next venture or the next attempt. Entrepreneurship is, I don't know if this is the right way to describe it, but to a lot of people, it's a buzzword. It's a sexy word. Oh, I'm an entrepreneur, right? And what entrepreneurship really signifies is that it is a pathway to freedom as well. In other words, you get to choose who the boss is, and that's the man in the mirror, the woman in the mirror. And unfortunately, sometimes you should fire yourself because you're not but nonetheless, it does give you a path to freedom. The reason I got to look back on my startup with network marketing, direct selling when I was 21, 22. My experience buying and selling old cars set me up to be a success in network marketing because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't think of entrepreneurship or solopreneurship, which is single person entrepreneurship. I didn't realize that's what I was doing by buying and selling. That's like affiliate marketing or whatever. And I got good at it. And I also had all my ups and downs and challenges and money issues and all that, but I succeeded. So when I got into network marketing, what I saw, an organized system and products provided, I just had to work harder than myself in order to learn the system and manifest my dreams through the system. So entrepreneurship is a big part of success and freedom. And I don't promote network marketing in this book a lot. I cover a chapter in it because the chapter's called On Ramp to Entrepreneurship, because it was my on ramp. Low cost of involvement, company support, team support, leadership support. You're never alone. And you've only got yourself to blame if you give it up, if you give up on your dreams. And I guess you should ask your family first before you should quit, because they're counting on you. But talking about entrepreneurship, I have been in multiple industries within direct selling. I've been in water treatment, filtration. I've been in cosmetics. I have sold environmental friendly products, skincare. But the products are the products. And one thing I look at when it comes down to products, I want a unique selling proposition. I don't want to this comes from my entrepreneurial buying and selling cars experience, because I didn't buy family four-door sedans and expect to sell them for much of a profit. I wanted unique vehicles, like one of a kind, like limited edition, like maybe a two-door coupe or a roadster convertible that not many around, because then I knew that I had something nobody else had. And if I fixed it up really nice, I could command the best price. So I don't want to be just another one of many mimicry, sound-alike, look-alike consumer products that most network marketing companies offer. Unfortunate, but true. And each of the industries that I was in, I'm not going to go through them, but we had a product that nobody else had. And in my current venture, we have products that are patent and life-changing, and basically our number one seller has no competition. And we sold 30 million bottles of it. How's that? So what I'm saying is, so here's where the mistake falls in. When people think, okay, I'm cutting hair in a salon, I pay for my chair, or I'm an accountant in somebody else's accounting practice, or they work in a store or a coffee shop or whatever, and then all of a sudden they think, you know what? I don't want to work for somebody else. I want to work for me. So first thing they do, they make a fatal mistake. Instead of becoming an entrepreneur, all they're doing is going to go out and buy themselves a job. Because you see, if you got a hair cutting salon and you're cutting hair, and now you go out and rent a space in a mall or whatever to cut hair, and guess what? Now you got a lease, you got rent, you got utilities, you got equipment. You may have to do some advertising. You might have a receptionist. And guess what? You're still cutting hair. And now you can't even take a vacation, because the minute you go take a vacation, if you're the only one in the salon, guess what? You have to close the doors. The money stops coming in. So you're burning yourself. You're putting yourself under stress. And that applies to anything where you're trading time for money. When you look at an entrepreneur, I'll tell you what the ultimate entrepreneur is. An ultimate entrepreneur who dreams that nobody else has even thought of yet, like a Steve Jobs or, Elon Musk is out there trying to put people on Mars, right? I mean, who thinks that big out of the box? Now, most people don't think that big. But what I'm saying is, at least give yourself the best shot that you've got, and, find something that will give you the lifestyle and fulfill your life's purpose by choosing the right kind of business out there. And I do a chapter on different kinds of income-producing businesses, whether it be affiliate marketing, affiliate, different businesses out there, network marketing. But one thing for sure that you should focus on is your people skills and learn to sell. If you're afraid of selling, if you don't know how to deal with people, overcome objections or issues, don't go into business for yourself. Because ultimately you have to sell somebody why they would do business with you. And whether that's through marketing, that's one thing, but selling is selling. When you do the profiles of people like, the billionaires like Bill Gates, when his voice was squeaky when he was a young teenager, he used to disguise his voice, and he used to do boiler room cold calling to sell computer parts. Selling, Mark Cuban, he would sell garbage bags door to door. They all started their careers. Look at people like Grant Cardone. Look at people like Mr. Wonderful. If you don't know how to sell, you're stuck. And it's the best experience you'll ever have is learning how to work with other people. Napoleon Hill said in his book, Think and Grow Rich, if you help enough people get out of life what they want, you're going to get out of life what you want. So it's not about you or commissions. It's about servicing other people, giving them value, selling them the products and why yours is the best, the most unique, or what have you, if you've chosen right. And that's how you start a business. So that's one of the chapters that's important. So make the right decision if you're going to become an entrepreneur. And listen, if you don't have the money and you're not certain what you're cut out for and you don't know if you could sell, there's no better on-ramp than network marketing, because you're gonna have to stretch. You're gonna have to get out of your comfort zone. And if you can do that, a good example. In my book, I talk about he did the foreword on my book. He's my dearest friend, Ian McClellan. He was a superstar in direct selling in the same company with me back in our early 20s. But what he learned through our first exposure and working together, he still talks about it to this day, and we're both in our 70s. And he's got a project right now that he hopes to sell out or merge an acquisition that could bring him about $50 to $100 million after putting 50 years into pursuing his life's purpose and building a company that other people want to buy from him. But he got that out of network marketing.
Wow.
And the principles don't change, but you can learn, without a university degree, you can learn through practice.
What would you say your biggest failure is?
Well, first of all, I never admit to the word failure. It's not in my vocabulary. The only thing that I would say that I might have, I don't really, it's hard for me to answer that question because I see everything. Well, let's take it from a different angle. I've had people that have known me, some of those old friends that we touch base once in a while, that turned me down at different times. Sometimes those things didn't turn out because I've lost money. I've had to close a company, two companies actually, and one of the questions that have come up from time to time, Harvey, and they're always trying to look back with 2020 vision and hindsight, right? They're saying, Harvey, I told you that thing wouldn't work. And then they would say, if anything, if you could do your life over again, what would you do different? Would you actually do what you did, knowing what the outcome was? And I got to be. My answer is really quick because it's authentic, and that is, I wouldn't change a doggone thing.
Yeah.
Because I am not who I am if I hadn't have done the things that I've done.
Yeah.
Because anything I failed at set me up for another success.
Yeah.
And you know what? I am happy how Harvey Conner turned out. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I wouldn't have been if I had done something different.
Or
And I
hadn't
would
tried.
not change. Yeah. Yeah. I'm happy with everything. I have no regret. The interesting thing, you'd never want to go to your grave with regrets, like I could have, I should have, I would have, but I didn't, right? And here's the other thing that was a real butt kicker. I wanted to be pleasant in how I said that. A butt kicker is I listened to somebody speak on a webinar. It was a couple of years ago, and he was talking about just staying motivated and things. And the essence of what he was saying is what I want to share with you right now is that at my age, I'm 78. Years ago, when I first heard this, the first thing I thought of was, I've lived more of my life than I have life left to live. Because if I've lived 78, am I going to live another 78 years? Not likely. God willing, with our products or whatever, maybe half. But what I'm saying is that's definitely not a certain. Okay. So I have a bucket list still. I have things that I want to do. I've been a world traveler. There's things that places I still want to go. I'm so busy right now, probably busier right now than I've ever been because I've got a lot of plates spinning.
Yeah.
But as soon as I can get completed on a couple of these, and the weather changes, I'll probably do some traveling again. I want to be able to climb the Great Wall of China. I want to be in St. Petersburg, Russia. I want to be at Carnival down in Rio de Janeiro. I want to visit St. Petersburg. I want to go in the jungles. There's things that I want to, when I pass, I want to pass with memories. Okay. And looking forward to the future.
Yeah. So inspiring, Harvey, because so many people just, don't have that mindset. And as a result, don't have any opportunity to have those circumstances or experiences.
Yes, but there is a key that you can unlock. Anybody can unlock all of that, and that is change your mindset.
Yeah, bingo.
And you see, I used to tell this all the time when I started a live seminar. I understand that when we're born, or we'll put it this way, when we're conceived, we had no choice who our mother or father was, the color of their skin, what country I was going to be born in. When I was born, political leanings my family was in. But what I was in my little body, I had a 3 pound, maybe it wasn't 3 pounds then, but I had a 3 pound computer that had started to be programmed when I was still in my mother's womb by the food she ate, the time that she ate. So or the music she listened to, if you played that music when I was born, I'd want to be eating that food. It's all subconscious programming. And so as children grow up, what happens is they're being programmed. Your mind is the most fertile soil on the planet. And just like when you plant poison ivy in fertile soil, it creates poisonous weeds. When you create beautiful flowers and food to nourish the soul, the body, in that soil, it grows. Whatever you plant, it sows. You have no say over that. Whatever's planted in your subconscious mind reaps results. You are only living out what you've been told and what you believe, no matter if it's true or untrue. So when you're growing up and you're living in a family that is struggling financially, like you're in maybe preteens or teenage, and you want to have the nicest dress or the nicest looking clothes to go to school because, kids there's trends and everything. And you're hearing your parents, overhearing them saying, I wish I could give Mary, money for that dress. We just can't afford it. We're not making enough money at this, what we're doing. It's hard for me to tell her. And the child's over listening to this, maybe in the next room or whatever. Or she comes up with the excuse why she can't have that. But the worst thing that happens, the parents will say something like, you know what, honey? You know what? We can't dress you up like the rest of the kids, but you know what? We don't have a lot of money, honey, but we're happy. How that manifests, and it can't, doesn't always, is later in life, she doesn't want to pursue anything to make a lot of money because she'll be unhappy. Because that's what her parents told her. Okay. That's terrible. So that's why when you do in my book on network marketing, I go in a whole lot of analysis of this in the people business. Kids that grow up in an entrepreneurial household where their mother and father are doing business and they're sharing successes and they can afford to do things. What do you think that kid's thinking that they want to do when they get out of school? They may not want to start a business, but they're going to certainly go out and get a degree and want to go to university to learn how to be a business person or manage a business or be an accountant or whatever, or a professional medical person or whatever. So the environment creates your future. So that's what happens. And so I learned when I left and found new friends. I also read a book called How to Be Rich by J. Paul Getty. And he said, if you can afford to live in a neighborhood where you can buy the house and put all nice furniture in, change your neighborhood and rent a place where the rich live and live without furniture and hang out where they hang out. And I did that in Vancouver. I came back from a venture that failed. I rented in an estate down in South Granville, and it was a massive estate where they built townhouses. I had no furniture except the bed, and I used to go out and lay by the pool and get tan, and there'd be other people laying around there, working from home or whatever. And I got to make a friend with a guy that happened to own the biggest health spa chain in all of Canada, has Lamborghinis and Ferraris and all that. And something he saw in me, that a younger version of him. And I decided I was dreaming big. I wanted to start my own network marketing company. And he was asking me what I wanted to do, with my life. And I told him. And we kept in touch. He would invite me out for steak and all that. My self-image was so elevated by even being in his environment that he wouldn't accept me as a friend, rather than some losing attitude person that was trying to draw me back into keeping their misery in comfort. So one day I decided I wanted to go to Australia and start a business. I walked into his office with a business plan. He said, I don't need your business plan. He said, how much money do you need? And I told him it wasn't a lot in today's standards, but it was a lot. And he said, Harvey, He said, I know you're going to succeed. He said, pay me back when you turn your first profits. And he wrote a check on the spot. And I was off to Australia. I was 20. That's not in my book, but that's, it's who you hang out with. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room because you're not going to learn anything.
Yeah.
And here's the interesting thing. People who are elevated that you're afraid to rub shoulders with or get to know, the sheer fact that you're reaching out and you want to know more and be like them, the more they'll help you.
Yeah.
The more they're going to help you. Because, the interesting thing, people don't want handouts. If you're going to look into them for a handout, they won't give you one.
No.
They won't give you one. But they'll give you a hand up. They will give you a hand up because they will help you learn from them and guide you. Mentorship is empowering, and that's another chapter in my book, or how you become successful. Don't be afraid to be mentored. They're there for that.
Yeah. Actually, that was one of my goals this year was, or I shouldn't say goals, but just intentions is to, I've had different mentors and different people over the years and different coaches. And it's like, no, now it's time for a new experience, right? And for that, you need to find somebody that can help you have some new experiences and new thoughts.
Absolutely. And mentorship doesn't, just like my friend, he was nothing to do with my industry at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, he was in physical workouts and gyms and spas, and he knew I had no interest in that.
Yeah.
But he knew what I was passionate about. And that's the other thing too, that I've always been able to have, thank God, is when you have purpose and clarity and a dedicated heart, decided heart, what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it. It fires you up from inside out. It gives you passion. And Napoleon Hill said in his book, he said, when you dream big, and when you believe, you believe big, because it's like a fire. A little fire produces very little heat, but a raging fire heats the whole room. Okay. So, you got to get on fire, get on fire, light the match and watch you burn, get on fire. And when it comes to leadership, here's another interesting quote, metaphor, is that leaders who lack passion will have followers who lack commitment. You cannot build a team without passion.
And you can't fake that.
Definitely not. One of the things that I learned, and I didn't have to fake it, but it was a result of my passion, my purpose, is I always was smiling. And your smile will take you to the top. Andy Andrews, who wrote Traveler's Gift, I guess it was,
Yep.
and the 12 Decisions, he puts a whole chapter in there on smile. And he spoke at one of our events and he said, this is what made me $1 million. Because the smile is an outward expression of how you feel about yourself on the inside. If somebody looks pretty miserable about life, they're not smiling. They can't even fake it because they're miserable on the inside out. But when you're really clear of why you're here, what your purpose is, and you're making progress, success is a journey. It's not a destination anyways, right? It's about everyday incremental steps. And when you're smiling all the time, and maybe you smile a little harder when you go to the bank too. I don't know. But, when you smile hard, it's amazing. I'll walk down the sidewalk, my hometown, my neighborhood. And if I'm walking along, and I'm not even conscientious if I'm smiling or not, but people will smile at me and say hello. I don't even make the first step. Okay. So it's really one of the secrets, and just get real clear, get passionate about where you're going, what you want, and your smile will come naturally. How are we doing for time? I know you.
Oh, we're great, Harvey. So tell me, you are been in businesses with, established systems, but inherently what I love about you is you have never stopped being an out of the box thinker. And I can see that in you. I can see you are more passionate about things, lots of times people as they get into their retirement and stuff, they lose some of that passion and that drive that got them there to begin with. I see more drive in you and more excitement and more out of the box thinking in you than I see in people half your age that should have it.
Well, that's a sad thing,
Yeah.
people. Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us, Like, I want to get into what excited me so much about talking to you about this podcast is hearing how you are choosing to market this second book.
Oh, okay.
And just the implications of what that means and what it could actually, be for people that might have things like books or products that they want to get out there. So I know you have embraced the blockchain and you're doing things a little differently. So tell us about it.
Well, an inside track before I go into that is that the blockchain, to go into why I went that direction, but the blockchain was something I knew nothing about. A lot of people are kind of impressed with me. I know I'm so internet savvy that I am. Like, I've got about 42,000 followers on my biz page on Facebook and other platforms. I love marketing, and I'm passionate about video production. I edit my own videos, although it's not really smart use of time, but I just enjoy it so much. But to help me, when I talked about life is short, when AI came on the scene and I realized, life is short, years pass fast, I saw AI as something that would give me my life back in terms to do the things that I want to do without having to go through the process of taking forever to learn how to do it, and maybe through trial and error. So when I wrote my second book, I learned from my first book that because of the size of the book, number of pages and all that, in order to get the price down where I could make a profit and sell it at a reasonable price, I had to invest a lot of money to buy volume from the printer. And I still have some books, right? That's not a bad thing, but I still do. So I knew from, again, experience, I didn't want to print a book that I'm going to have to invest a lot of money in and sit on inventory again.
Mm-hmm.
So, although I love the feel of a book and flipping through the pages, so I did have a Canadian printer print out like 20 copies only. I gave it up a bunch of my friends, right? So, but the thing that bothered me about doing an ebook is that for e-readers and all those different electronic devices, is that what you're doing is that you're putting the book up on a format that can be downloaded. I don't have an e-reader, so I'm maybe speaking a little bit ignorant of some of the facts here, but I do know that once your book is out there in a downloadable format, you've lost control of it. And I means that I sell it to 3 or 4 people, and they give it to 400 or 500 possible, right? And if network marketing, I know that it'll distribute even faster without any money to me. I was thinking about how secure the blockchain was. I mean, all the decentralized computer servers and all that. So I got AI involved. I developed a strong relationship with AI. I've trained the AI system very well. They know exactly what I'm looking for at different times. And I basically buried myself it took probably 4 or 5 weeks, but I kind of got up to speed where I was comfortable. And I hired a programmer, a blockchain programmer, software engineer. And what we did, we created a book, a PDF document that was used as tokens, which is how you put things up on blockchain. It's set up in a way that, and I created a website. See, most people on blockchain, even if they have a book, they think the obvious way is to be on a website where everybody goes to buy blockchain books, right? So there's a lot of blockchain websites, like an Amazon version of blockchain, right? But that's the last place I wanted to be again, because I've done Amazon and I don't want to be a shadow and competing with books that are not relative to my book. I'm a marketer. So I said, I'm going to set up my own website on the blockchain. In other words, it's on the web, but it's called the Web3. And when you buy my book, some of the restrictions are usually on blockchain as the methods of payment. But today's world, you can use systems that will accept credit cards and crypto. So that's makes it easy for a purchaser. And then when they get the book, they register themselves, and they're actually becoming a licensed owner of this digital asset. I've given them a license. They can call it, it's theirs. And I own the publishing rights and all that, but it's theirs. And every single page has a watermark on it saying this book is licensed to Melanie, right? Not for resale. So, and it's not a downloadable PDF. You have to log in to read it. And you can do it on your phone or iPad or whatever. But here's the other thing that's a big benefit. First of all, it stops that, copyright infringement. Not saying it might not stop at 100%, but it's a deterrent. But here's the bigger deterrent: incentive. Because I'm not paying for printing, I'm able to commission. So when you become a book owner, you get a code, a referral code immediately. And when you refer the book with your code, you get an instant 20% commission. Instantly. You don't wait for anything. It's instantly put into your account. You have a little back office, and you can see who bought your book, and you can take the payment. The payment's on blockchain, and you can take the payment in any currency in the world, and you can also take it in crypto. So, it's sort of reminiscent of network marketing a little bit, except it's not sold on levels. It's all personal referral sales, one level. But, a person can refer 5 books and's got the book for free. Yeah. So the next step for that, so that's foolproof. That's all programmed. That's all set up, all ready to go. But the way to market a book effectively is don't waste it. I've learned this the hard way. Selling books, best place to go is on Facebook. Hate to say it, but it is. Okay. The problem is you're going to spend more money on ads than you're going to make selling the book. It's cost you anywhere from $12 to $20 to sell one book on Facebook. Okay. So my book was $21.95 already, cost me close to that to print it. So I'm going in the hole in every book that I sell. With digital, of course, I don't, I'm paying for ads, but I've got the margins. The other thing I learned is you go to the best of the best, the best of the best booksellers. Somebody knows how to sell books. And through research, I came up with a person. And here's the other thing that's really crazy. Even though I wasn't trying to be the bestseller and make millions selling my book, I was hoping to do well at it until I learned about the statistics. You know, the average person who writes a book only sells 200 books in a lifetime. 200! It's insane. And that a bestseller in Canada is only 10,000 books. Wow. So most people, if they got money, they'll buy 10,000 books and say they got a bestseller. But what I want to say is, on the other end of the spectrum, which is where I looked at, Jack Canfield, Chicken Soup for the Soul, do you know he sold 500 million books? And that's just, you can go into the United States and book the various bookstores, the big ones, Barnes Noble and all that. There are sections in the bookstore that are all Jack Canfield, like whole rows and rows and rows of books. I know Jack Canfield. He got started in the same company I did in network marketing back when I was we're same age. He showed me a check for just 1 quarter earnings was $1.2 million. And he wasn't doing really any marketing, all the bookstores and agencies and all that. So I didn't want to be a Jack Canfield, but I wanted to make a lot of money selling this book. Okay. Because I got a message that it's not a niche market like network marketing. It is entrepreneurs. So I found a business, a person. Anybody who wants to talk to me about this can connect with me. I won't go into it on the phone on the interview right now, but it's expensive. There's a person out there who sells a $3,000 course, and he will guide you every single step, what it takes to have a successful product, a book sold on the internet through Facebook. But here is the challenge. The authors that he trains, and he's got all these testimonials, some of them making 6 figures, 7 figures selling books. But do you know what he trained on, and those that are successful didn't write the book and then went out and learned how to sell it like I'm doing. They tested the market to find out what's going to sell on the internet and then wrote a book about that by testing headlines, taglines, colors, page layouts, the size of fonts, the images, and do traffic campaigns so that you get people clicking on your website. And after you do every one of those tests, over 6 tests, you take the top 4 or 2 and you end up with a test ad campaign, put them all into one, and see whether people will click and buy your book before you spend a dime advertising.
Hmm.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Now, I have faith in my book and myself that I'm going to sell a lot of books. And again, it's not ultimately why I'm doing it. I mean, I do want to make money, recapture all the money I didn't make on my first, but it's the way to go. I'm on my 6th week right now. We've with chat, we've got it all worked out. We know what works. We know our audience. We know everything. And we're getting like millions of clicks looking at the site. And we're getting multiple tens of thousands going to my webpage and clicking on buy, even though they don't necessarily buy right now because it's not that kind of a campaign.
Yeah.
So, through grace, I should have a runaway campaign when I launch. And I haven't fully launched yet. So that's what I've learned. And AI has been instrumental. The other thing I've learned too, the average earner in book sales who is selling a lot of books, they sell anywhere. They have 5 or 8 books at any one time on the Facebook page.
Wow.
So what I'm doing, I have just translated my Entrepreneurs Don't Fail into Spanish.
Yeah.
So that's going to be available on my site. And I'm in the process of turning my first book into digital.
Nice.
So I'll have 3 books as a publisher, up on blockchain, probably within the first quarter of next year.
Well,
So that's a short overview, or not so short, but an overview of how I evolved, how this all comes about. I'm an entrepreneur through and through.
yeah.
And the first thing, my hair cutter, I was at her salon, a few weeks ago, and I was showing her my book, and she was asking me about how I'm selling it and all that, because she's a bit of an entrepreneur. And I no sooner finished telling her about putting it on the blockchain and commissioning the book. She says, I get it. An entrepreneur teaching entrepreneurs by making this an entrepreneurial activity.
Yeah. Well, and it's basically like affiliate marketing. It's
Yeah.
basically affiliate marketing, but it's brilliant because that's how I was able to read your book.
Yeah.
And, in this world of Amazon and everything else, I just feel like that concept alone and being able to say to people, okay, now you have the license for this, go forth and multiply.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like that's exciting to watch anybody being successful with something like that.
What's good about this, and I'm proud to say that I've chosen this route, is that a lot of the books you see sold on blockchain, and even taught by this guru, most of the authors that are really prospering greatly are all fictional stories, love and romance, and love lost, and a few bios, but that seems to be where the majority of people spend their days and hours reading dreams. You know what I mean? But I'm on a different quest. I'm on a different market. I wanted to bring value to, one of the things that people have on their minds, and that is how to be self-sufficient. Also, in the world that we live in right now, I mean, the timing is perfect. I mean, with all the saber rattling between the Western world and other countries, with all the political upheavals, with all the corruption, I mean, and AI replacing white collar jobs. I mean, the only fallback position for survival, I'd say, and feeding your family and even living a decent lifestyle is to be self-sufficient, to be an entrepreneur. You just have to be a smart entrepreneur. Don't trade your job to buying a job where you're going to be in the same place suffering that worse because you're losing money on your overhead. But there's lots of ways to make money. As you read in my book, I mean, I found a piece of property, a town in Hobart, down in Tasmania. I bought it for 50 grand and sold for almost 200,000 in 12 hours.
Wow.
There's
Yeah.
ways of making money everywhere.
Yeah.
Here's what's interesting. It's not interesting. It's vital. It all stems right between your ears.
Hmm.
And it stems with self-confidence, self-esteem. You see, your level of success in life, no matter what it is you tackle, will never exceed your level of your own self-esteem. If you don't believe you're worthy of it, you'll never have it.
Yeah.
You will find yourself, you may put it down, like you'd say, I want to make $1 million, but then you get people sabotaging themselves saying, my mother said people who are rich aren't happy, or I'm going to lose all my best friends who are all broke. I love my broke friends, right? So I don't want to revisit friendships. The brain will only, everything that you want to achieve in the external starts with internal. You have to internalize, and that's was the core to my success in the beginning. When I attended that first meeting and I went out and searched for the money, the gentleman who brought me, and first thing he gave me was a book of Think and Grow Rich, and he gave me a vinyl record with Earl Nightingale, The Strangest Secret, and all about Think and Grow Rich. The whole message of Think and Grow Rich, apart from the principles, is the message is anything the mind of a person can believe, anything they can conceive and believe, it can achieve, because your creator didn't give your ability to give birth to that thought without the compensating capacity in order to make it a reality. Wouldn't he doesn't want to live you the rest of your life in torment. You can't have it now. I gave you the seed of thought, but you can't do it. You can be who you need to be to have what you want to have. And as long as it doesn't defy the laws of man, government, and or it doesn't, it lacks integrity, as long as it's honest on solid principles, which he goes into the book, then you will succeed. And I took that to heart. And I read that book about 8 times. And when I was developing my sales organizations, I had read chapters and verse where I didn't even need the book. I could recite that in my training. And you know what? To be a master of anything, you got to be able to, you got to master it yourself. Then you teach her. Then you are a true master. And that's where you get your passion from, because they say this guy walks the walk, not only just talks the talk. So that was the first thing. So the second thing was Earl Nightingale's Strangest Secret. It was his 33 and a third vinyl record. That's how long I've been around doing this, right?
Yeah. I love
In
listening
fact,
to it on the vinyl. Like, I love that you can find some of the old YouTube recordings off of
it's all
vinyl.
coming back.
Yeah.
It's all coming back. I just saw a big thing on internet yesterday that CDs are coming back. You can buy CD players now. So anyways, the vinyl record said Strangest Secret was real simple. As he got through the story, he said the strangest secret is that we become what we think about most of the time. So if something that you want so bad that it permeates every cell of your being, every cell of your mind, everything around, you just can't help but think about it when you go to bed at night. You wake up in your dreams thinking about it. You wake up in the morning, you get up an hour earlier because you don't have time going to a job. You got to pursue with the calls you got to make. You got to do those things because to get to where you want to be. And then when you do that over and over again, it's habitual. You do it without even thinking because you're driven by internal purpose, by goals that you've set. When I lived on the dairy farm, we used to have crops. We had 80 acres. And when we had planting or we had harvesting, we would take our tractors and go out into the fields, and we'd always go down the same path. And after a while, you would get like a groove from the tractor and the way to the sweat. You could actually take your hands off the wheel and we just follow the track. So Earl Nightingale says in his recording, he said, most people end up with following the followers, the oldest game in town. People don't know where they're going and everybody else is following them. It's the blind leading the blind. And he said they get into this comfort zone, into this rut of life. And the only difference between a rut and a grave is a rut is a grave with the ends kicked out. So he said in that recording, be different. Take the different path, not the well-trodden path. And I took that so hard heart to heart, that even when I had a routine, I would break my routine all the time so I didn't get into that rut. When I was building homes in Tasmania, okay, we had an office out in the country because we're building in the country. And there was different ways to get to my office. I would only go the same way no more than 3 times in a row. I would always find even a longer way around if I had to get up earlier. So I didn't get into that routine blindly, just letting that car drive on its own. And
Wow.
so anytime I knew somebody was saying, let's go do this, let's go do that, my friends trying to egg me on, go do that. We'll see you in 20 years.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
just made a point of being different, and, things would reinforce that to me that I was on the right path. I remember one time I was out with a young lady and we were actually out racing cars and I had a GTO and it even started in those days too, because I had to do something different, right? To be different. And she looked at me and she said, Harvey Conner. I said, yeah, that's my name. She says, you know what? That's who you are. It didn't even hit me at the time, but don't be like anybody else. When you were born, as I said, even twins, triplets, all have different fingerprints. They look the same, but there's different fingerprints. When you were born, the mold was broken. There will never be another Melanie or another Harvey. But most people, what do they try to spend their lives doing, according to Earl Nightingale? Try to be like everybody else, which is the last possibility in the world that you could ever change your genetics to be like anybody else. So why would you want to be like anybody else? Dress the same, look the same, hang out with the same people, be different.
Yeah.
And in a book called, I think it was called The Greatest Miracle. It's an amazing book. He talks about what I just shared with you. That's where I got those metaphors about, your different fingerprints. And he said, what you need to do is to get up on the mount and proclaim your rarity, that you are not like anybody else. Be thankful, be grateful that there is nobody else like you.
Yeah. Well, Harvey, I am so grateful for you doing this podcast with us today. And I can think of no better spot than to leave it at being so grateful that there's nobody else like Harvey Conner. Tell us just, there's going to be people listening that maybe are like, okay, how can I connect with him? How can I talk to him?
Okay. There's a couple first of all, you can find me on Harvey Conner, my business page, fan page on Facebook. I'm on Instagram
Yeah.
as harveyconner.ageless. And I have my own branded website that is harveyconner.com. And you can find my books on harveyconnerbooks.com.
Yeah.
And you can also find the network marketing book on my first 50 years.
Okay. So, as we're sitting here talking about how people can find you, did you have anything cross your mind that you would like to still say in this podcast?
Yeah, it's a new year. What you've done in the past has no bearing on what you can do in the future. You can reinvent yourself as many times as necessary if you know what your ultimate aim and purpose is. Because unfortunately, the first path you take, whether it be in network marketing or affiliate marketing or writing or anything, publishing or whatever, it may not lead to, you've got to see it all the way through is what I'm saying is. But if you quit, you're starting over. So make sure don't take where you're going lightly. Find out what it is you want, set your purpose, and find out the best possible way to get there with the most leverage. And we talk about leverage in my last book and scalability. Can you get, can there be more of you offering what you're offering? In other words, how do you use in a nice sense? How do you benefit others when they benefit you? In other words, that you can work together and build a team, or Facebook or leverage. I mean, there's lots of ways, but just saying, fine, it's kind of lumpy what I'm explaining here, but the main thing is find out, get quiet, find out if you had all the money in the world and you had all the free time in the world, how would you live out your life? How would you design your life? What would you do for others? Tony Robbins also says, success without fulfillment is the worst failure.
Mm-hmm.
Success without fulfillment is the worst failure. So don't chase money. Ways of benefiting other people. Bring value to people's lives, and you will have more money than Fort Knox will be able to hold for you.
Well, I so appreciate all of your wisdom, all of your nuggets for us, and mostly I think it's what I see in you, and I get excited after talking to you. I feel supported by your enthusiasm, and I think people will feel that from you, Harvey. And I would encourage anybody that's listening to this to absolutely, if they feel the impulse to connect with you, to reach out. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so thank you so much for being here today.
Wow. It was great to share this with you, Melanie. You're on the right path yourself. And if I was able to add some more fuel to that fire, I did my job as well.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Okay. Have a great, I guess, the rest of the day or evening, and we'll talk again soon. Take care.
All right.